So finally we have a Jurassic Park sequel that's actually taking advantage of the concept of a theme park full of dinosaurs. Took them long enough. Jurassic World. So Jurassic World came out in 2015, was directed by Colin Trevarrow, and this actually is a Jurassic sequel that I would say captures the spirit and intrigue and awe and creativity of the original. Now, is it as good as the original? I don't think so, but it at least tries to bring something new, something we haven't really seen before in this franchise, and that is the opening of a theme park full of dinosaurs. Yeah, the first one, there was a theme park, they had it all ready to go, but it never actually got open to the public. In Jurassic World, we see it. It's been open for a little while. Everything seems to be going pretty good. People are having a good time. It's making a lot of money. But this being a Jurassic Park movie, you know that sooner or later something's going to go wrong, and it does, and quite a few people get eaten. But this really is a movie that showed me why I liked the first Jurassic Park so much. And it's just because the idea of a theme park full of dinosaurs open to the public is just an inherently cool idea. There's no getting around it. This world where dinosaurs are back from extinction, they're in this park, people can pay to go see them. You have all these different rides and attractions and meet and greets and petting zoos. It's all super creative, and it shows us that there's more to this Jurassic Park idea than just having a bunch of people running in the jungle away from dinosaurs. There's things you can do in this world that make it feel fresh and unique, while at the same time not deviating too much from the original concept of a park full of dinosaurs. And I think another thing that helps this movie stand out from the rest of the franchise is that it doesn't rely on recognizable faces from earlier in the franchise. There's no Dr. Grant or Sadler or Malcolm. None of them really show up in this movie. The only returning character from this franchise is Dr. Wu, which, makes sense. He's the scientist and he, made the dinosaur, so of course you'd have him. But everybody else is new. We got a bunch of fresh faces. Some of them work, some of them don't work. Some of them are actually kind of underutilized, and some are just really predictable, obvious villains. And I'll talk about them when I get to it, but really the entry point in this movie are these two brothers, Gray and Zach, and they don't really act like natural kids. Gray acts a bit too young for his age. I don't know, there's something about his performance, the kind of whininess, the blubberiness of him in some scenes that just, it feels like he's 6 or 7 when he looks like 9 or 10 years old, so that doesn't really work. And Zach isn't much better. I mean, he acts his own age, he's an upper teenager, somewhere around 16, 17 years old, but he's kind of doing the Hayden Christensen thing in Attack of the Clones, where he just kind of stares at women across the way and just acts real creepy most of the time. And I don't know, his performance doesn't really grab me either. So movie's not starting off on the best foot with these two kids, but they're going to Jurassic World and they're gonna meet Aunt Claire, played by Bryce Dallas Howard, who runs the whole park, and so they got like special VIP passes and everything. The only downside is that Claire is running the park and she can't really supervise it, so her British assistant, I don't even think she's given a name. If she is, I apologize, I'll put the name here, but really she's just British assistant lady, and she doesn't really do much to watch the kids either. But really the two new characters that actually make it into the sequels and are the people that this movie should have been about, it really just should have focused on Bryce Dallas Howard's Aunt Claire and Chris Pratt's Owen Grady. And that's because these two actually have backstory. They both work at the park, they know each other, they used to date for a little bit, but they're kind of estranged, it's awkward, and throughout the course of the movie you see them working together and maybe festering some kind of new romance. All the good things that make for interesting character dynamics and just help you care about the human characters when dinosaurs are about to eat them. That's kind of important. And while they're fine here and they are given enough screen time, I just would have liked to see a little bit more attention placed on them. Maybe give them a little bit more of a backstory, really flesh it out a little bit, and not spend so much time with these weird kids. But I will say the one upside of having these kids in the park is that they're doing all the park things, so we actually get to see what Jurassic World looks like open to the public and all the things that are available. And a lot of them are pretty cool. You have this little petting zoo with baby triceratopses and stuff, and that's cool. I could see little kids really getting into that. And for the older kids, you have the Mosasaurus show where they feed them a great white shark and the bleachers go underneath. There's some real good creativity here. And even the stuff with the hamster balls, which I have no idea how those things got approved. That is just way too much of a liability for my taste. If I were running the park, I would not have those, Jeeps, okay, maybe have the, some gas Jeeps that are manned by an adult, someone responsible, but these self-running hamster balls, I don't know, that's a little too risky for me. But it does lead to some pretty magical, wondrous, awe-inspiring animal encounters, and the John Williams score swells at appropriate moments, so you have that nostalgia of the original Jurassic Park feeling of when you first saw dinosaurs. And I guess I should talk about how the dinosaurs look in this movie, because they, for all intents and purposes, are the main character. They are why we go see Jurassic Park movies, after all. We don't see it for human characters. We see a movie called Jurassic Park, or Jurassic World in this case, and we're there for the dinosaurs. And this movie came out in 2015, so these dino special effects have got to be top of the line, looking great, looking realistic, and they look alright. I thought they were fine in 2015 when I saw it in theaters, and now that it's quite a few years older now, the CGI is starting to show a little bit more. But I think the reason why the dinosaurs in this movie don't seem to last that long or leave that much of an impression is because they don't really use a lot of animatronics. Now, even as CGI heavy as Jurassic Park 3 got with its Spinosaurus, they still had rigs and animatronics to kind of fill in those close-ups and really get some tangible dino action. In this movie, it's pretty heavily CGI. The only scene I can think of where I'm pretty sure they used an animatronic dinosaur is when this big brontosaurus is dying. It got slashed up pretty bad and it's lying there dying. And Bryce Dallas Howard and Chris Pratt are there trying to take care of it and let it die, peacefully. And that scene is really effective because they have a real brontosaurus there. He's real animatronic, he's moving, articulating. The actors have something to actually respond to and bounce off of, so it feels so much more real than a lot of these bigger, more dramatic action sequences because there's actually something there. It's tangible and it looks real. But I guess somebody either in the studio or the director or somebody thought that the animatronics didn't look realistic enough. So with the scenes where the velociraptors are all in their little cages, all muzzled up and their heads are exposed, it looks like they had velociraptor animatronics in those cages because it's a perfect opportunity to have an animatronic. Only the head is visible, so you can really use that and have the actors interact with it. It looks like they had that, but then painted over some detail or kind of airbrushed out some imperfections using CGI, to either make the eyes move a little bit more, the teeth to move a little bit more, just to give that little something extra. But by doing that, it kind of defeats the purpose of having the actual animatronic there in the first place, because it has this weird film over it where it just looks kind of fake. I don't think that added detail outweighs the loss of immersion that you get when you actually have Chris Pratt or Vincent D'Onofrio put their hand on a velociraptor's head and they react to it. I don't know what they were thinking, but now the velociraptors look just as fake as all the other dinosaurs when they really could have a nice tangible moment there. But as much as I complain about the CGI, it's not bad here by any means. It's realistic enough, and in the heat of the moment you're watching it and you're enjoying it, and dinosaurs look fine, but it just doesn't have that wow factor, that grand illusion that the original had, or even the original sequels had, where they cut between animatronic and CGI to kind of trick your brain and trick your eye into believing that these dinosaurs are real. But anyway, back to the plot of this movie. So you have Aunt Claire here, and she's the head of Jurassic World, and she's trying to run everything, and they're about to reveal their new dinosaur, the Indominus Rex. And this Indominus Rex is, classified. Nobody really knows what breeding took place, what gene splicing took place to create this monster, for lack of a better word, because it's not a real dinosaur. It's this new attraction. It's all make-believe. Dr. Wu in his lab was cooking up something and wanted more teeth, wanted it bigger with all the demands of the corporate interests. They want everything bigger and scarier and whatnot. And I kind of like this idea because it does seem to be in line with Michael Crichton's original vision for the corporate world and man's ambition getting the better of them, and ultimately being the undoing of this idea of a park full of dinosaurs, and just how much of a bad idea it is, and how greed and corruption can turn something that could be beautiful into something dangerous and scary and just not good. And it also seems to track that once you have an amusement park full of dinosaurs, interest is eventually going to start waning on this park. So you got to up the stakes, got to unveil something new, something no one's ever seen before. Just look at Disney and Universal. Their parks seem to be unveiling a new attraction almost every year. You know, it's never ending. There's always something new coming out. So I do think this is a pretty cool idea and a logical progression for the story, so no issues there. But things get bad when the Indominus Rex escapes and is now on the loose in the island, and thankfully the holding cell for this Indominus Rex is pretty far away from the actual amusement park area, so it's not like he's just released and all of a sudden he's eating people. No, they do have some time to actually take him out, to, you know, put him back into his cell, clean it all up before anybody in the actual park knows that anything was wrong. It actually makes sense. It's one of the rare times where a Jurassic Park movie actually has smart design and planning. It's kind of refreshing. But that kind of goes out the window when they find out that this Indominus Rex has genes from other animals that make it really hard to hunt down and a very dangerous predator, and this attempt to reel him in just goes completely south, and now they're in a bit of a panic mode. And now we've reached the part of any Jurassic Park movie where the wide eyes and clapping turns into running and screaming and crying, because now the dinosaurs are loose and people are dying. And I will say, when the panic ensues and people are running for their lives, it does feel like much higher stakes than any other Jurassic Park movie, because these are just regular people. They didn't know that this was going to happen. They didn't sign up for this. But now you've got easily thousands of common people huddled in this main street area trying to get cover from all the pterodactyls flying around. Yes, this movie has pterodactyls. In fact, it's the pterodactyls that I think are used better here than in any other Jurassic Park movie. Yeah, they were really cool to see them in Jurassic Park 3, and it did have some cool moments, but the way the pterodactyls are just so vicious here is awesome. And like I said in my Jurassic Park 3 video, pterodactyls have always been my favorite dinosaur because it's a dinosaur in the air. They can fly. They're not limited to the ground. So when you see people running and they're just getting picked up by pterodactyls and thrown about in the air and just ripped to shreds, tackling people, pecking their eyes out, you know, it's terrifying. It's like a prehistoric version of Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. You just feel that visceral fear when these things are coming down out of the sky trying to kill you. And I love that sequence, especially because the absent-minded British assistant gets her comeuppance for letting the kids escape. And she gets picked up by one pterodactyl, tossed to another one, and then the Mosasaurus comes up and eats the pterodactyl and her all in one big chomp. And that may be a bit of overkill, but what can I say? It was fun to watch. But oh no, where are the kids? Well, the kids were in those stupid little hamster ball things, and what do you know? It broke down. They went off-roading where they weren't supposed to, and now they're running for their lives, and it's up to Aunt Claire and Chris Pratt to rescue them. And I just realized I haven't really talked about Chris Pratt's character, because he's an actual interesting inclusion in this story because he trains raptors. You know, raptors, the most intelligent dinosaur in this world. It's been established in the past 3 movies that raptors seem to be getting more and more intelligent and cunning, so it makes sense that eventually you'd need someone to wrangle them. So bring in Chris Pratt, and he somehow unlocked the secret. It's not made entirely clear how it happens, but he's the alpha of the pack, so the raptors kind of respond to him most of the time. Obviously there's still instincts that kick in and he loses control, but for the most part it seems like he's got a pretty good handle on these raptors. But of course you got Vincent D'Onofrio over here who works for the military, and he wants to weaponize these raptors and use the training so that they can follow orders and do little strategic strikes into enemy territory, and he's this warmonger, and he's very cartoony and very obviously a villain, and it's a wonder that anybody actually hired him for this job because he's just so clearly unhinged. It's Vincent D'Onofrio playing a villain. Like, how do you not understand that this dude is a little crazy, unhinged, you know, don't really give him too much power. But once the dinosaurs get loose, there's enough of a power vacuum for him to seize control and get his program up and running. And they have a test case for these raptors. And while the reason for this raptor hunt is a little contrived and predictable, and I don't love the cartoony villain, the actual raptor hunt itself is pretty interesting and unique and new. And it seems like this movie had too many ideas for its runtime or story, and they just put too much into it. I would have liked to see some of these ideas separated out into other movies and just kind of focus this one up a little bit. Again, like I said, you can get rid of the kid characters. Just focus it on Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard, their relationship, Chris Pratt being a raptor trainer and her being this corporate, manager type person. And maybe just have this movie be about the ethics of raptor training and military contracts and the applications they have in the battlefield. Maybe have that be the focus instead of just this one little side plot, because it is a cool idea. I just don't think it's given enough screen time to really flesh out how complex an issue this really is. Because the movie makes it very black and white that you have the military, oh, they're the bad guys, they just want weapons, shame on them, these are animals, you can't control them. But I do think there is a more nuanced conversation to be had that this movie just kind of glosses over. But before I get into the third act of this movie, where the action really picks up and we get some pretty cool visuals, admittedly, there is a character that I think is very underutilized, and it's the owner of this park. I don't remember his name, but he only gets a handful of scenes, but he's the one that John Hammond trusted to open this park, continue his work after he died. And it seems like this guy has a pretty ethical mindset, if not a little careless, like John Hammond was himself. But he dies fairly early on in this movie, and I would have loved to see a little more character development with him, and really, why is he opening up this park? What's his mindset behind all this? He says spare no expense, but there are clear instances of where they did consider expenses and costs. And Claire even says that to them, that like, okay, we got to consider the business side. So I just would have liked to see a bit more done with him. Maybe put him in a position where he really has to make a choice between Owen Grady's idea of what the Raptors are versus Vincent D'Onofrio's idea of who they are. Really put his morals and his resolve to the test. But no, he just kind of goes out in a helicopter crash, and that's about it. But now let's get to the third act, because after the little raptor hunt, in the jungle where they put cameras on the raptors' heads, and it actually reminds me a lot of Dino Riders. You guys remember that show in Toyline? I don't know, for some reason putting tech on dinosaurs, just my brain always goes back to that, because that was such a cool idea. I wonder if they'll ever bring that back in some way. But after that goes about as well as you'd expect. Bryce Dallas Howard goes and she unleashes the T-Rex. And she opens the gate, she lights a flare, runs in really high heels, and doesn't trip somehow. Even though in the first movie the T-Rex could clearly go as fast as a Jeep. Yeah, that's kind of dumb. But she throws the flare at the Indominus Rex, so now the T-Rex has his eyes on the I-Rex, and they have a fight, and the T-Rex is clearly outmatched, so it's not going too well. But then the Velociraptors come back. Now we have a T-Rex and Velociraptor team up against the Indominus Rex, and they have this big fight, and it looks really cool. And you have the human characters trying to run around and try to find their own escape route while all this carnage is going on. And that action scene, while yes, it's a bit ridiculous, and like the running in the high heels, if you think about it for a little too long, it starts to not make so much sense. But it's shot in an exciting way. The music fits, the stakes are there. It's just a really cool, dramatic third act, and it's just good popcorn entertainment. And at this point in the franchise, if a Jurassic Park movie can just make me have a good time, getting my heart pumping with dinosaurs, that's a win. Because I don't expect any Jurassic Park movie to fully recapture the magic and awe and wonder and just lightning in a bottle that was that first movie. But this movie, Jurassic World, really gave it a shot and tried to have fun with its premise and try things that we haven't really seen before and push ideas that were in the original in new ways. I enjoyed seeing it. Now I turn over to you guys. What do you think about Jurassic World, the first one? Whatever you think, let me know in the comments, and if you like this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe for more content, and hit the notification bell to be notified every time I upload a video. And be sure to share this video around, because that's how the YouTube algorithm works now. And as always, I'm Colby. This is my nerdy talk, and I'll see you in the next video.